People really do panic Google. Can Christmas lights electrocute a snowman? As if Frosty is one bad wire away from a crime scene. Every December, Logic takes a long winter nap, and the search bar becomes a confessional booth for humanity's loudest intrusive thoughts. And trust me, if you think that was weird, you have no idea how deep this spiral goes. The truly unhinged stuff is still ahead. 1. Someone actually Googled, can a Christmas tree explode if it gets too dry? As if their living room was a ticking pine-scented bomb waiting for the wrong jingle to go off. And I love the confidence here, not, how do I water it, or what's normal tree care? No, this person skipped straight to Armageddon. You can picture them standing in the dark at 3 a.m., staring at the tree like it's plotting something. The branches are drooping, the needles are falling like dandruff, and instead of taking responsibility, they're Googling detonation risks, like they've adopted a small wooden grenade. And of course, after reading a few panic-filled forums, they didn't water the tree. They just lowered the thermostat to Arctic funeral, because apparently freezing the problem counts as problem solving. Classic holiday logic: don't fix anything, just fear it creatively. 2. Someone else typed, is it illegal to tackle someone for the last PlayStation? And this wasn't on Black Friday. This was Christmas Eve. Peak peace on earth energy, when grown adults suddenly transform into bargain hunting linebackers. I imagine the scene: two people crouched like predators near an electronics shelf, the last PS5 sitting there like a rare endangered species. One reaches for it, the other lunges, and midair they think, wait, is this a felony? So naturally they consult Google, hoping the legal system has a special holiday exception clause that allows casual assault over discounted plastic. Spoiler, no court currently recognizes, but it was for my kid as a valid defense for body slamming another human being. But the true comedy is the desperation. Because if you're Googling legal loopholes before you throw your body at someone, you've already lost more than just the PlayStation. 3. Some saint among us searched, can hot chocolate go bad if I microwave it 12 times? 12. Not 1, not 2, 12. That's not reheating, that's culinary necromancy. At that point, the cup has PTSD, the cocoa molecules have unionized, and the marshmallows have evolved into a new life form. You don't need Google, you need therapy. But of course, they kept drinking it, because during the holidays, food safety becomes more of a personal philosophy than a rule. The best part, they weren't worried about taste, texture, or the fact the mug probably glows in the dark now. They were only worried about whether the drink could kill them. Honestly, if you microwave anything 12 times, you deserve to meet whatever comes out of that cup. Hot chocolate should warm your soul, not threaten it. 4. Once discovered a Google search that simply read, can Christmas lights make you infertile? And this wasn't from someone wrapping bulbs around their thighs like a decorative tourniquet. No, they were just standing near a tree and suddenly decided they were in an electromagnetic fertility death zone. Imagine fearing a string of 99-cent LEDs like it's a secret government sterilization device. It's holiday decor, not nuclear radiation. Unless you're plugging those lights into a suspiciously humming military bunker, your reproductive system is probably safe. But no, holiday panic does not negotiate with logic. The person read 2 lines of a WebMD article, panicked, unplugged everything in the house, and spent Christmas in the dark, like Victorian-era monks. Congratulations, the tree survived, but the sanity didn't. 5. Someone genuinely asked Google, if I eat gingerbread cookies for breakfast, does that count as a vegetable? And honestly, the audacity is inspiring. This is the kind of mental gymnastics normally reserved for politicians and people who justify gym memberships they never use. Gingerbread contains ginger. Ginger is a plant. Plants are vegetables. Therefore, cookies dwells vegetables. Somewhere, a nutritionist just screamed into a pillow. The logic is beautifully, catastrophically flawed, the kind of argument a toddler makes right before dumping a jar of sprinkles on spaghetti and calling it dinner. But hey, it's the holidays. If we can pretend eggnog is a real beverage and not melted custard with dreams of alcoholism, then sure, gingerbread is basically a salad. 6. Then there was the masterpiece. Can Santa sue me if I leave out expired milk? The fact that someone imagines Santa Claus, a fictional man with unlimited toys and zero paperwork, marching into small claims court over dairy negligence is incredible. Picture the courtroom, Santa on the stand, elves as witnesses, reindeer parked illegally outside. Meanwhile, the defendant is sweating because they bought milk in November and hoped Santa wouldn't notice. This Google search tells me one thing: people fear holiday judgment more than divine judgment. They're not scared of God, they're scared of giving Santa diarrhea. Beautiful. 7. A personal favorite. Can you get drunk from smelling too much mulled wine? That's not a question, that's a confession. This person wasn't worried about safety. They were worried about how to explain why they were swaying like a malfunctioning inflatable Santa in the yard. Spoiler: alcohol doesn't vaporize into your lungs like a festive gas chamber. If your holiday party ends with you intoxicated from aroma, it's not the wine, it's your life choices. But I admire the optimism. It's like trying to lose weight by standing near a treadmill. Nice try, champ. 8. And of course, is it bad luck to open gifts early, or is that just something parents say to control us? This one is philosophical, deep, almost Socratic. Someone looked at their wrapped presents, felt the urge of pure childish greed, and asked the universe whether superstition could justify their impulsiveness. And honestly, the answer is both. Yes, parents invented that rule. No, it won't curse your family. But if you're Googling holiday loopholes like a lawyer in training, maybe waiting one more day won't kill you. Or maybe it will. I'm not your doctor. 9. Someone panicked enough to ask, can snow go bad? Not dirty, not yellow, not contaminated, just bad, like it has an expiration date printed by Mother Nature. Imagine being afraid of snow spoilage. Did they expect it to ferment? Develop personality? Rise up in rebellion? Snow is frozen water. If anything, it is the least complicated substance on Earth. But holiday brain is incredible. It convinces grown adults that weather can curdle. Beautiful. 10. A seasonal classic. Is it safe to eat candy canes after they get dusty? Dusty, not moldy, not cracked, dusty, as if a candy cane's biggest threat is the same thing that kills old furniture. I picture the person holding a candy cane like evidence in a crime drama, squinting at it under a lamp, trying to assess whether dust counts as seasoning. Google quickly informed them that dust is not, in fact, a food group. But let's be honest, they ate it anyway. It's the holidays. Food safety laws are suspended until January. 11. Then there's the spectacular panic Google. Can my Christmas wreath attract wolves? Wolves, not bugs, not squirrels. Wolves. I deeply respect the imagination required to see a decorative circle of pine and berries and immediately assume it's bait for apex predators. Unless you're hanging raw meat on your front door or your house is located inside Yellowstone National Park, you're probably safe. But holiday paranoia doesn't stop for geography. Somewhere, a perfectly innocent wreath was ripped down out of wolf-related fear. Nature weeps. 12. Someone genuinely asked, can I get electrocuted from wearing metal ornaments as earrings? And first of all, why? Why would you decorate your head like a sentient Christmas tree? Second, the fear here is incredible. You're not plugging your ears into an outlet, you're wearing tiny metallic baubles. Unless you decide to lick a socket while wearing them, you're safe, but logic is dead during December. People will panic over anything that sparkles, jingles, or vaguely resembles electricity. 13. One holiday genius Googled, is wrapping paper flammable? Which is bold, considering wrapping paper is literally thin, decorative fire. It's like asking whether a match is flammable. The answer is both obvious and depressing. Yes, wrapping paper burns. No, it will not spontaneously ignite just because it's near a scented candle. But when you're surrounded by open flames, dry trees, and emotionally unstable relatives, I understand the concern. The holidays are basically a controlled burn with twinkly lights. 14. Here's a festive meltdown. Can fruitcake make you hallucinate? Honestly, I wish that would at least justify its existence. But no, fruitcake doesn't transport you to another dimension. It just tastes like one someone abandoned. This search screams desperation. Someone took one bite, felt their soul malfunction, and needed validation that the cake was the problem. It wasn't. Fruitcake is just that unholy. 15. A masterpiece of insecurity. If my neighbor's lights are brighter than mine, does it mean they're richer? Nothing says holiday spirit like turning Christmas decor into a socio-economic crisis. Imagine someone staring out the window, watching their neighbor's house glow like Vegas, spiraling into an existential meltdown while holding a tangled extension cord. Google cannot save you from this kind of emotional damage. But the answer is simple. Your neighbor isn't richer. They're just more comfortable setting things on fire. 16. Someone actually typed, "Can you overdose on peppermint?" which suggests they consumed an amount of candy that should legally require medical supervision. Peppermint is flavor, not narcotics. You don't wake up in the ER after one too many candy canes whispering, "I flew too close to the minty sun." But that's the beauty of holiday panic. Everything becomes a medical emergency if you try hard enough. 17. And finally, is it normal to cry when taking down holiday decorations? This isn't a question for Google. This is a question for a therapist. But sure, let's ask the internet whether emotional breakdowns are standard seasonal behavior. The answer is yes, but only because everyone else is falling apart too. The holidays create this perfect storm of nostalgia, exhaustion, and tinsel-based trauma. Crying over a plastic snowman isn't normal, but it is absolutely relatable. And in December, relatability is just another form of sanity. 18. Someone actually Googled, "Can Christmas cookies attract burglars?" As if criminals choose houses the same way cartoon characters follow scent trails of pie floating through the air. Imagine standing in your kitchen at midnight, staring at a tray of slightly overbaked sugar cookies and thinking, "Yes, this is how they'll get me." And it wasn't even gourmet baking. This person used pre-made dough with the consistency of rubber cement, yet still feared it might lure felons like pastry-based bait. The funniest part is the earnestness. They worried the cookies smelled too good, like burglars have Michelin-level standards. If you truly believe someone will break into your home for a crunchy, unevenly frosted gingerbread man, congratulations, you are living in a Christmas special written by someone who has never met another human being. 19. Another holiday overthinker Googled, "Can I get carbon monoxide poisoning from too many candles?" which tells you everything you need to know about December brain. They weren't burning a couple candles for ambiance. They admitted to lighting 23 candles. That's not decoration. That's an occult ceremony. Their living room probably looked like a low-budget seance filmed inside a Yankee Candle outlet. Then, halfway through their ritual of questionable decision-making, they panicked, imagining their holiday cheer turning into a silent Victorian death. Their solution? Opening one small window, just a bit, and declaring the crisis resolved. No extinguishing candles, no second thoughts, just a draft and blind confidence. If anything was going to kill them, it wasn't carbon monoxide. It was the sheer fire hazard of living inside an unmanaged wax forest. 20. Someone typed, "Can nutmeg make you fail a drug test?" which instantly tells me they seasoned something with the enthusiasm of a man trying to summon ancient spice gods. They weren't baking a pie, they were making festive oatmeal, which already sounds like a cry for help. And after dumping in half a jar of nutmeg, they suddenly imagined HR accusing them of running a black market spice ring. They sat there, sweating, imagining explaining to their employer that their only crime was breakfast. Reality check. Drug tests do not detect gingerbread adjacent seasoning choices, but the paranoia is beautiful. Only during the holidays do people fear failing a drug test because their oatmeal tasted too spirited. 21. Someone asked, "Can you get frostbite from eating ice cream in winter?" which tells me we have entered a level of holiday panic where climate, food, and common sense have merged into one confused blob. They weren't outside. They weren't in a blizzard. They were in a heated kitchen eating mint chocolate chip when their tongue tingled for half a second. And instead of accepting that frozen things are cold, they Googled like they were losing limbs on a mountain expedition. Ice cream cannot give you frostbite unless you glue it to your skin for an alarming amount of time, which raises more disturbing questions. But no, this person was convinced dessert had medically assaulted them. 22. Then there was a search for can Christmas ornaments cause radiation? Because apparently a shiny glass ball is now a nuclear threat. They didn't mention where the ornament came from, but based on the panic, you'd think it was handcrafted by Chernobyl artisans. They claim the ornament felt warm, which could mean anything from "I held it too long" to "my house is heated." They sat on the couch staring at this tiny red globe like it was about to melt through the floor. If ornaments were radioactive, December would be a nationwide emergency. The only dangerous thing about them is that they break, which is a threat only to bare feet and dignity. 23. Some brilliant mind Googled, can a gingerbread house collapse on its own? Like gingerbread is subject to mysterious architectural curses. Look, gingerbread houses collapse because people build them using icing that has the structural integrity of anxiety. This person described their house as leaning, which translates to, I built this like a tired toddler in a hurry. Instead of admitting their frosting technique resembled emergency construction, they believed their edible home was experiencing spontaneous failure. Gingerbread houses are not governed by engineering, they are governed by humidity, gravity, and how aggressively someone ate their way through the back door. 24. Someone typed, can Christmas sweaters cause allergic reactions if they're too festive? Which is a level of paranoia I didn't know existed. They claim the sweater felt hot, which is interesting because sweaters are literally warm clothing. Festive designs do not emit toxins. Sequins do not activate biological warfare. But this person genuinely believed their Rudolph sweater might poison them through excessive cheer. The likely culprit was cheap polyester, but of course, they blamed the holiday spirit itself. Imagine being so terrified of embroidery that you think it's trying to kill you. 25. Another user asked, can the smell of a real Christmas tree get you high? And honestly, the creativity deserves applause. They inhaled a deep whiff of pine and apparently felt lightheaded, which either means they stood up too fast or their brain short-circuited from joy. Pine trees are not psychotropic substances. You cannot get high off nature's air fresheners unless you're already halfway gone. This person imagined themselves accidentally tripping after walking into a forest-scented candle section. If trees could intoxicate people, every hiking trail would require a bouncer. 26. Then there's, can you get electrocuted touching tinsel, which reveals someone who decorates like they're defusing a bomb. Tinsel is plastic. It does not conduct electricity. The only way it shocks you is through static, which is normal and extremely non-fatal. This person felt a tiny zap and immediately assumed they were seconds from being found on the floor by relatives. Instead of relaxing, they touched the tinsel again to confirm the danger, which is peak human behavior. Poke the scary thing twice. Then they Googled the worst case scenario while wearing socks on carpet, wondering why life is so hostile. 27. Someone panicked after drinking hot chocolate and Googled, can hot cocoa give you a fever? They drank a mug of steaming liquid, felt warm, and interpreted this as a medical emergency. No, your body is not malfunctioning. You heated yourself from the inside. That is literally how hot drinks work. This wasn't a fever, it was basic thermodynamics, but this person acted like they'd ingested molten lava and were awaiting their fate. If hot cocoa could cause fevers, winter would be a constant flu simulation. 28. Someone else feared, can wrapping paper be toxic if it's too shiny? Which is delightful, because shiny things are apparently threatening now. They claimed the paper looked suspicious, as if it were manufactured by a villain in a children's movie. They sniffed it to check, which is already a questionable scientific method. Shiny wrapping paper is just glossy coating and cheap dye. It's not going to take you out like a silent assassin, unless you eat an entire roll. Then yes, consequences exist. 29, then came, can eggnog spoil inside my stomach? And this is maybe the most impressive panic spiral so far. They drank eggnog that tasted a little off, shrugged, finished the cup, and only afterward Googled biological consequences. Once the dairy is inside you, it does not begin a new fermentation cycle like you're hosting a brewery. Stomach acid destroys everything. If eggnog spoiled internally, December would be a national disaster every year. What this person felt wasn't fermentation, it was regret. 30, someone asked, can Christmas music cause heart problems? Because apparently listening to Mariah Carey has become a cardiovascular threat. This person said the beat felt intense, which suggests they were either stressed, dehydrated, or spiritually allergic to holiday cheer. Christmas music cannot physically harm your heart unless you're counting emotional trauma from repetitive jingles. If that were true, mall employees would be medical miracles. 31. A truly dramatic individual searched, can holiday stress make me temporarily blind? They forgot a gift for a cousin, panicked, and claimed they saw white for a moment, which is not blindness, it's blood pressure and bad coping skills. Instead of taking a breath, they leaped straight into ophthalmology. Stress does not shut down your eyeballs like a Windows update. But nothing says December like treating every minor inconvenience as a near-death event. 32. Someone genuinely Googled, can a snowman collapse because it's sad? And I want to buy them a blanket and a reality check. They described their snowman leaning sideways after they left it unfinished and interpreted this as emotional despair instead of melting physics. Snowmen do not experience abandonment issues, they experience sunlight. The fact that this person assigned sentience to frozen water truly highlights what holiday loneliness can do. 33. Another user asked, can licking envelopes give you food poisoning? Because apparently they live in constant fear of inanimate objects. Envelope glue tastes terrible, yes, but it is not a biohazard. They complained it tasted chemical, which is accurate because glue is not artisanal icing. You are not meant to enjoy the flavor, but getting sick from it would require conditions that envelopes simply do not possess. At worst, your dignity suffers. 34. Finally, someone wondered, can you get emotionally attached to a Christmas ornament? And the answer is absolutely, because December is the annual Olympics of misplaced emotion. They said they felt sad putting it away, like the ornament was being sent to solitary confinement. The feelings are real, but the drama is optional. If you're bonding with glass decorations, you don't need Google, you need sleep. Or maybe the holidays are just doing their yearly psychological tune-up. 35. Someone Googled, can gift wrapping give you anxiety attacks through the color red, which is honestly an incredible blend of psychology and nonsense. They claimed red wrapping paper made their heart race, which is normal because red is bright, bold, and in this case, probably printed with graphics loud enough to blind a small horse. But instead of considering lighting, design, or the fact that they'd been shopping for 6 hours and hadn't drunk water since Tuesday, they concluded the pigment itself was emotionally hostile. They even wrote that the wrapping paper felt aggressive, as if it were challenging them to a duel. Look, if a color is giving you heart palpitations, it's not supernatural danger. It's your brain staging a revolt. But of course, they kept staring at the paper like it might attack. This is what the holidays do. Turn inanimate objects into psychological threats. And honestly, I love the energy. 36. Then there was the person who typed, can holiday leftovers become dangerous if they absorb too much joy? Which is possibly the most poetically confused question I've ever seen. They said their fridge felt festive, which is not a scientific term, and they worried their food might change chemically from holiday vibes. The only thing changing chemically is the turkey you left uncovered for 3 days, but sure, let's blame metaphysical happiness for your questionable refrigerator habits. They described sensing an energy when they open the door, which is just cold air hitting a tired human face, and panicked that their leftovers were transforming like radioactive creatures. If you think food absorbs emotions, you are not dealing with biology. You're dealing with a Disney Channel plotline. 37. Someone Googled, can Christmas lights rearrange themselves overnight? Which makes me suspect their house isn't haunted. They're just bad at symmetry. They carefully aligned each strand, went to sleep feeling proud, and woke up convinced the lights had developed free will. Not maybe gravity happened, or maybe I used cheap tape, but the lights are moving. Holiday decor is many things: chaotic, fragile, overpriced, easily tangled. What it is not is sentient. But this person stared at their wall like the lights were plotting an uprising. The best part? They blamed holiday magic, then immediately became terrified of it. That's the duality of December. We want whimsy until whimsy turns into a threat. 38, and then, can wrapping too many gifts cause carpal tunnel instantly? The key word is instantly. This person wrapped 3 presents, felt a cramp, and assumed their hands had reached medical failure. They Googled like they were drafting a disability claim over Scotch tape. They wrote that their thumb felt heavy, which is not a symptom of anything except being alive. But the panic was real. They pictured themselves in hand braces, explaining to coworkers that the cause was excessive ribbon curling. Gift wrapping is annoying, yes, but it will not make your limbs fall off. Unless you use dull scissors, then you might lose your will to live. 39. Someone else searched, can decorative snow villages drain electricity from my body? Which sounds like a plotline from a low-budget sci-fi holiday special. They set up one of those ceramic villages with glowing miniature windows, stepped back, and suddenly felt energy leaving, which is probably just exhaustion from plugging in 14 cords behind a couch. But instead of acknowledging poor posture or dehydration, they believed their tiny porcelain town was siphoning their life force. They unplugged everything and felt better, which is exactly how placebo works. The only thing draining their energy was crawling around on the floor like a confused electrician. 40. Then came, can candy canes sharpen themselves overnight? Which is a sentence I never expected to read in my lifetime. They said they left a candy cane on the table and in the morning it was pointy, which is how candy canes work because sugar dissolves and reforms. But no, they were convinced it had sharpened itself like a prison shiv. They worried their candy was gaining weapon status. Here's the truth. Candy canes become blades because humans cannot eat them without turning them into medieval weaponry. But imagining one sharpening itself while you sleep is next level panic. 41. A surprisingly dramatic entry. Can Christmas stockings suffocate pets from across the room? They clarified they didn't even own a pet. They were just worried theoretically. According to their logic, the fabric held too much air, which is not how suffocation works, and a stocking might steal oxygen, which is also not how oxygen works. They stared at a decorative sock like it was an environmental hazard. Stockings cannot suffocate anything unless you physically shove something into them, and if that's your plan, your Google search is not your biggest issue. 42. Then someone asked, can too many ornaments bend the space-time continuum? And honestly, the ambition of that question is impressive. They hung so many ornaments on their tree that a branch sagged, and instead of accepting that cheap trees sag under weight, they assumed they'd created a gravitational anomaly. They said the tree felt heavier than it should, which is another way of saying, I decorated like a maniac. They worried the ornaments were creating pressure on reality, which is an incredible way to admit you bought too many shiny objects. Physics is not bending. Your tree is. 43. Someone typed, can hot cider vaporize my memory? After forgetting where they put their keys while drinking cider, they believed the steam might be chemically erasing short-term recall. Not stress, not distraction, cider steam. They described it as mind fogging, which is what happens when you inhale warm air while panicking about holiday tasks. The cider is not vaporized amnesia. The only thing being vaporized is your last 3 functioning brain cells as December stress peaks. 44. Then we reach, can holiday candles open portals? Yes, portals. They were lighting a cinnamon candle, saw the flame flicker, and decided it was a supernatural phenomenon rather than the result of air movement. They worried a holiday spirit might step through. which sounds more like a Hallmark movie pitch than a realistic concern. A candle cannot open a portal unless you're actively filming an exorcism, but they still blew it out and apologized aloud, just in case, which is the most December behavior imaginable. 45. Someone else Googled, can a Christmas ham explode if it's angry? Which is culinary insanity at its finest. They described hearing a popping noise in the oven and assumed the ham had emotions and was expressing them violently. Meat does not experience anger. Meat experiences heat. The popping was fat, but they stood back from the oven like they expected the ham to launch itself at them in revenge. If your ham is angry, the real issue is your imagination, not the roast. 46. Then came the paranoid masterpiece. Can Christmas cards track my location? They received a card with glitter and assumed the glitter was GPS enabled. They thought the sender might be watching them, as if Karen from accounting suddenly became a covert operative. Glitter is not surveillance technology. It's an inconvenience that will outlive us all. But they examined the envelope like it contained state secrets. If holiday cards tracked people, half the world would go into hiding every December. 47. Someone also asked, can gingerbread men judge me? Because they felt watched while eating one. This level of guilt is incredible. They bit off the head, then spiraled into an existential crisis, imagining the rest of the gingerbread community sharing telepathic judgment. Gingerbread has no consciousness. You are projecting. But honestly, if feeling judged by cookies stops you from eating the entire batch, maybe it's not the worst hallucination. 48. Then we have, can mistletoe summon unwanted people? They stood under mistletoe at a party and someone they disliked walked over, so naturally they blamed the plant. Not social coincidence, botanical summoning powers. According to their logic, mistletoe is a magnet for awkward encounters, and while that feels true emotionally, it is not a recognized scientific field. Mistletoe cannot summon anyone. What summons people is gossip and free snacks. 49. Someone Googled, can my house collapse under the emotional weight of holiday expectations? And honestly, that one felt a little too real. They claim the walls seemed stressed, which is an incredible sentence. The walls are fine. You are not. Houses do not feel emotions. If anything collapses under holiday expectations, it's the humans inside, not the architecture. But I appreciate the melodrama. And there you have it. A full tour of humanity panic Googling its way through the holidays, like confusion is a seasonal tradition. If you've seen anything dumber, drop it in the comments so we can all suffer together. And go ahead and vote for the most unhinged entry while you're down there. Hit like and subscribe if you want more proof that the internet is basically a cry for help wrapped in tinsel. 50. And of course, the almost final masterpiece, can holiday cheer be fatal? They heard loud laughter from their neighbors and genuinely wondered if too much happiness could kill someone. Not metaphorically, literally. They pictured paramedics showing up like, cause of death, cheer overload. Holiday cheer does not kill people. Family gatherings, poor decisions, and undercooked poultry might, but joy itself is pretty safe. Still, they Googled like they were preparing for a crime documentary. 51. And finally, the grand finale. Someone Googled, can the holidays end faster if I hide? As if they believed time itself could be manipulated by strategic cowardice. They said they wanted December to go away quicker, so they sat in their closet for an hour, hoping to skip it like a loading screen. Time did not move faster. They emerged to the same blinking lights, same relatives, same chaos. And that's the perfect ending. The ultimate holiday Google search by someone trying to outrun the calendar. You can hide from your family. You can hide from your responsibilities. But you cannot hide from December. That's the universe's mic drop.